preliminary matter, permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the call on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mike Landers.
Here.
Eric Mitchell. Eric is the other member of the board and has notified us that he has a conflict today and cannot attend. So, with 2 of the 3 members present, we do have a quorum for the meeting, and so the meeting will proceed. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. David Lane.
Here.
Peter Korpusik.
Here.
Angelica Medina.
She's logging on, Bill. She'll be here.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Clint Allen.
Present.
Jason Small.
Present.
Thank you, Jason. Stephanie Doherty.
Present.
Angelica, we're taking attendance, and you're on now. Please respond in the affirmative. Are you on mute, Angelica? Yeah, you're on mute. We can't hear you, Angelica. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, sorry, my computer is giving me some technical difficulties this morning. I'm here, though. Thank you.
I had the same problem. Stephanie and Clint had to get me in. Okay, the next item on this script is anticipated speakers on the agenda. Please respond in the affirmative. But since all the speakers have already been confirmed to be here, that's same as above. So we'll now move to the introduction to the remote meeting. Good morning. This open meeting of the Municipal Light Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Municipal Light Board is convening remotely via the WebEx app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Meeting materials. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Here are the meeting business ground rules. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, Please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, we have established an email address for public comment. It is publiccomments@danversma.gov. This email address is also posted with the agenda and shown online with the streaming of this meeting. Resident will email comments and they will be provided, read out loud after staff has confirmed their name and address. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call. Okay. With that completed, we will now move to the first item on the agenda, and that is to receive public comments. Clint, have we received any public comments at this time?
No, not at this time, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Clint. The next item on the agenda is to accept the minutes from the October 27th, 2020 meeting. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes Mike?
I move that we accept the minutes of our previous meeting.
This is Bill. I will second that. Motion. Mike, is there any discussion on the minutes?
Nope, they look fine to me.
Okay. Per the instructions, I'll go through each member by name and ask if you have any comments on the minutes. David Lane? You have any comments on the minutes?
No comments, Bill. Thank you.
Angelica Medina? You have any comments?
No comments, thank you.
Jason Small?
No comments, thank you.
Clint?
No comments at this time, thanks.
Peter?
No comments, Bill.
Stephanie? Stephanie?
No comments.
Thank you. And I have no comments. With no comments on the meeting, the discussion portion is closed. We will now move to a roll call vote to accept the minutes of the meeting from the October, where'd it go? October 27th. Roll call vote. Mike?
Yes.
Eric is not in attendance. This is Bill. Yes. The motion to accept the minutes is passed unanimously. We now move to the next item on the agenda. This is the financials to be presented by Peter Kapusik and or Angelica, if you choose Peter. I yield the floor to Peter.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. This is Peter Kapusik. We're going to go over the September 30th, 2020 financial statements for the electric division at this point in time. And if we start on page 1 of the financials, we can look at the revenue from the sales of electricity. And if we go to the revenue subtotal, we can see that through September 30th, we are up close to 3% greater sales than we were last time during this time of year. The biggest increase, if we go to domestic sales, which corresponds to residential households, we're up 11.5%, almost 11.6%. A lot of people have been working from home. It was a warm summer. The air conditioning was probably on a lot more, and therefore that increase is substantially higher than we would have anticipated. Some of our small businesses and medium-sized businesses have been closed, as we all know, due to the pandemic, and we can see that those categories are down. That would be our small general service and our medium general service. But in total, we're ahead of where we were last year by almost 3%. The second part of the page is the miscellaneous type revenues that we have. The one thing that's a little bit different there is at this point in time, if we go down to the middle of that section, miscellaneous non-operating income, account number 421, that's down 190,000. That was our flush of funds account. And as we've discussed several times, last year was what we expect to be the last payment. We anticipated that that would be zero at this point in time. And as we can see, that is in fact zero. If we go up to the next line, interest income, that is down $250,000. As we've said to the board before, a lot of the money that the division has, the treasurer puts in MMDT accounts for us. The good thing about that is that when the interest rates go up, we reflect the increase pretty quickly as opposed to having it just in a bank account. The downside of that is in a situation that we've had this year where there was a big financial shock nationwide and the Federal Reserve lowers the interest rates, well, that lowering of interest rates comes to us rather quickly too. And we can see that that's the effect of that through September is $250,000 less income than we would have had last year at this point in time. And if we go to the revenue subtotal, we can see that at this point in time, all types of revenue taken into account, we're right where we were last year at this time, almost dollar for dollar. So the next part that I normally like to go over is our expenses. And purchase power, which is at the bottom of the page, it goes from 555 to 570, is down $1.1 million or 7.3% from the same period of time last year. Now, what's a little bit interesting, or I find interesting, is that our power costs, which are the first three things in that section, 555, 556, and 557, that's down $1.5 million or 12.1%. But our transmission cost is up $373,000 or 11%. So although our power costs are doing good, because of where we're located, our transmission costs have increased. But in general, our power cost, which is our main product that we have to buy, is down 12.1%. So that's a good thing. If we go to the end of page 2 and we look at the profit and loss where we are this year versus last year, we're substantially higher than where we were last year. A lot of that's got to do with our power costs. If we go to page 5, which is a part of the balance sheet, and we look at our customer accounts receivable, which is the second account down from the top of the page, account number 142. At this point in time, we're almost exactly where we were last year at this time. Now, that given the fact that we weren't able to shut customers off and weren't doing our usual sending out notices and talking with customers on a week-to-week basis like we normally do, that number being the same is actually very good. We should be very, very happy with our customers that they were able to, buy the electricity. And as we said earlier, the residential was up and, they were in fact able to pay it. So in general, our sales and our receivables, I'm very happy with, given the financial constraints that some people may have found themselves in. Another point of interest is our cash position, which over the years, people have shown a great interest in. If we go back to page 4, our maintenance cash and our stabilization cash is down almost $2 million or 10%. The stabilization cash is down $3.7 million. That's because we made a payment to the Town of Danvers retirement system to eliminate a lot of the liability of the pensions that we erode, the promises that have been made in the past. and we paid them a good portion of them in two payments, the $5 million payment and the $3.7 million payment. Our operational cash is up somewhat higher, but again, that would be anticipated given that, with the COVID, we went into a different operational mode, and some of the larger projects that we would have done and big maintenance jobs, weren't done simply because of the constraints that were put on us in the workforce. If we add in the depreciation cash, we're still lower by 4% than we were last year. And again, the depreciation fund is higher than where it was last year. And a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that, again, we weren't doing some of our major projects that would have eaten up that cash. So in general, we're profitable, we're liquid, and we don't have a lot of outstanding customers' accounts receivable. So in my opinion, Mr. Chairman, through September, and not just through September, nothing's happened since then, but we're doing well.
Thank you, Peter. At this point, we'll ask for any questions on Peter's report, and I'll do that for the instructions by name. Mike, do you have any questions, comments for Peter?
Peter, just sort of a quick one, which actually came from a resident who asked me the question. Can you just sort of just quickly for me, so I can tell them what are the state, and one part of this, I apologize, isn't going to deal with us, but I know you know the answer to it is, what are the state requirements in terms of us not collecting against overdue electric and or water bills?
Well, the Department of Public Utilities, which regulates that, sent out a letter at first saying that, and I think it started with the governor's office, that people that were behind in their mortgages and their rents could not, be penalized. So the governor said something to the state, the DPU sent us something, a couple letters saying that, given the circumstances, they didn't want us to shut stuff off and, give our customers a break. They didn't want us to be during these particular hard times. So they are the regulatory body. We normally go along with them because, they are there. The DPU is there to protect the residents against, I'll say, the utilities, because some people have that opinion of utilities. So they sent out that letter. They sent out a following letter in I think it was the middle of the summer, saying we'd like to extend that until November. And then once we get to November, certainly we can shut off, but the bar is a lot higher. We have to have, a lot more things go wrong for a customer before we can shut them off.
All right, thanks, Peter. That'll be enough of an answer to give to him. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, this bill again, in line with the instructions on how to run the meeting, I'll now go through each of the attendees and ask if they have any questions or comments for Peter. David Lane, any comments for Peter? You're still on mute.
Yeah, sorry. No questions. Thank you, Bill.
Okay, thank you, David. Angelica Medina?
No comments at this time, thank you.
Thank you, Angelica. Clint?
No comments at this time. Thanks.
Thanks. Jason?
No comments at this time. Thank you.
Stephanie?
No comments.
Okay, thank you. Peter, I had just a couple on items that were markedly changed from last year. Let me see if I can find it. On the first page of your report, Peter, down on total other income, just below or just above the grand total revenue, the other total income was up over $500,000. Looks as though that was driven primarily by, it was down That was, I think the big change there was due to the interest and the non-operating income, the flush of funds was down 190,000, and then the interest income, as you covered, was down 226. So kind of a very big change, but in line with our expectations. Is that correct, Peter?
Yes, it is, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. On page 2, the very first line, account number 581, operational labor expense, is up 75%. Again, not a huge number this time. It's gone from 47,000 to 82. I found that just a little surprising in that, as you mentioned, we were restricted on doing a lot of stuff, and we kept the labor down to a degree. Do you offhand know what that is due to?
So, Bill, I can help with that one. So on the labor, so we still kept the same labor force on. We never laid anyone off, so we had the same labor costs. Due to the restrictions, we reduced some of our capital projects, especially when we were on the AB. Because we weren't doing capital projects, we weren't able to capitalize the labor. Thus, it went to operating expenses rather than the capital under the depreciation. So that's a challenge that we're working with as we're wrapping up the end of the budget. So it's the same amount of labor. It was just, instead of being charged to capital because they would have been on a big project, they had to be charged to operational.
Okay, thank you, David. I understand. That's kind of an accounting thing to a degree, in that where do we charge the labor? If it goes on a capital project, it doesn't show up in this account. It shows up charged to the capital project.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Even behind the scenes, in order to get the budget to come out at the end of the year, I've asked Jason and Clint to see what we can do to capitalize labor for November and December, and we've done that a number of times to see, can we do capital projects at the end of the year if we're upside down on the budget like this a little bit.
Let me just ask, is that a big consideration? Only because we'd be spending the labor dollars anyway. Why is that a concern? Because it would reduce profits or surplus for the year?
It reduces our unrestricted cash balance. That's where it comes if we spend more on operational than planned, and we underexpend on capital. So we'll show an underexpense in capital because those projects we planned to do and couldn't do because of the changes due to COVID. So if we'd like it to come out closer to what we had planned at the beginning of the year, then that would be an attempt at that.
Okay, thank you. I think I just have one more, Peter. Here we go. Peter, still on page 2, miscellaneous general expense, account number 930, is up $700,000. Would that be pretty much due to the same kind of reason that with the COVID effect in place, we're restricted on doing stuff that shows up here as opposed to capital?
No, it's not because, well, yeah, but it's got to do with the way we categorize the salaries. When the COVID first came, we were categorizing and everybody was home, or most of the staff was home. We were putting it under admin salaries. So if you go back to page 1, Mr. Chairman, and you look at 580, account 580, the last account on that page, you'll see that that's down $337,000.
Yep.
If you go to page 2, you're going to see that operations, supplies, and expense, which also has a salaries portion, account 582 is down 200-something thousand. Meter monitoring, account 902 in the middle of the page is down 100,000. And energy conservation, there's a part of a salary in there, is down 53,000. Those salary expenses got, the way we coded them, they ended up in, under miscellaneous general expense, there's usually what is a very small portion of salaries when we classify it as admin time, which is what we classified it as, and doesn't really impact this going through this categorizing all that time as admin time has expensed the salaries, but it is artificially lowered the categories that I just mentioned and greatly inflated this miscellaneous general expenses. So it's a COVID issue.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Okay, that takes care of my questions. Thank you, Peter. We've already gone through the list of attendees for questions and comments. So this will close the discussion portion on finances. Do I hear a motion to accept the financial report? Mike?
I move to accept the financial report as provided by Peter Kapusek.
This is Bill again, and I will second that motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Again, I will go through each attendee by name for the instructions for the meeting. I'll start with David Lane again. Do you have any questions or comments on the motion, David?
No comments or questions, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Angelica, you're next. Any comments, questions on the motion?
None at this time, thank you.
Thank you, Angelica. Clint?
None for me, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason?
None at this time, thank you.
Okay, and Peter, any questions or comments on the motion to accept your report?
Mr. Chairman, no comments.
Thank you. Stephanie?
All set.
Okay, with discussion closed, we will now move to a roll call vote on the motion to accept the financial report. And again, it is a roll call vote. Mike?
Yes.
Eric, again, is not able to attend today. I am the other vote, and I vote yes. Motion to accept the financial report passes unanimously. We'll move on then to the next item on the agenda, which is the PP and FA to be presented by Clint Allen. Clint, you have the floor.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning, everybody. So we're getting close to the end of the year. Power supply costs and revenues have been closed out through September, as Peter had just gone over. So beginning with the power supply cost factors through 2020, for the month of September, we came in a little bit low on our capacity. We received a Seabrook credit to the tune of about $130,000. Market energy sales were a little bit, they're up in residential and large G3, but they were down in the G1s and G2s. So kind of our load kind of fit with our portfolio. We had a little bit of market exposure, so we came in about $20,000 below budget on that. And transmission costs for September were pretty much spot on. So we came in about pretty much kind of the story of the whole year, a little bit below what we had forecasted, and about $157,000 for September, which through October 1st has landed us about 8.5% below what we had budgeted for the year, which is approximately $1.6 million at this point. The next factor I'd like to discuss.
Excuse me, before you say that, could you explain the Seabrook credit, please?
Sure, Bill. It's a prepay for capacity, so we used less than we had anticipated, and they gave us that credit back.
Thank you.
Moving on to the kilowatt-hour sales factors. So September it's hard to imagine now, but September was actually a nice mild month in the mid-70s. So as Peter had mentioned, the residential sales were about 5% above what we had forecasted for September. The large commercial were also above about 3%. We saw an overall, a slight decline through September, as we have through pretty much the whole year, with the exception of August. Bringing us to, as of October 1st, we are about 4.7% below what we had forecasted for the system-wide sales. And moving on to page 2, over the power supply revenue factors. So, as stated previously, the revenue obviously ties pretty closely to where we're at with our actual kilowatt-hour sales. The increase in the residential and the large commercial G3 accounts has helped significantly, as you can see in the graph, especially through August. We actually over-collected. We undercollected a little bit in September, but we're pretty close to where we had originally budgeted, about 5.5% below the beginning of the year, which, power supply costs have come down. Our revenue's also coming lower than we expected, to right now about $985,000, where we'd anticipated being as of October 1st this year. So with those factors considered, we're going into December, so this will be the last PPNFA charge recommendation for calendar year 2020. With the reduced power costs, we have had the reduced revenue as I mentioned, but really we've essentially kind of started the year about 1.2 million, as we can see. If you want to actually look at page 2 and 3 concurrently here, let's look at the summary graph. We kind of see on the PPNFA over/under collection, we began the year a little bit north of 1.2 million. With the first half of the year, as was per the plan, we were, putting that money back to the ratepayers and to get us more to the $500,000 mark per the policy. Then through the summer, revenues actually went, way up. Power costs came down, in no small part to that next era renegotiation. So we actually began, kind of over collecting what we'd anticipated. Through September, as October 1st, we're right about 1.95 million in the over/under fund. And forecasting out for the next, the remaining quarter of the year, we anticipate landing approximately 1.75 million in the over/under fund. So we've been working with E&E where for the December meeting, we plan on having, let's see, move my months here. So we'll have October closed out, we'll have November about 90% closed out. So we'll have a very good idea of where we're actually, going to begin the year with, and where we're going to begin January 1. But for this recommendation, I think that we will maintain the current charges for residential and all other classes. We will land, north of where we anticipated, and going through the budget process right now, we'll assess, the appropriate PPNFA charge to begin the year with to get us back down to, our targeted over and under amount. And then with that, the December 2020 bill, the average 750 kilowatt hour residential bill will come in around $106, which is just a little bit north of Middleton, but still well on the bottom of the list. Especially when you think of the poor folks who have National Grid for a utility. So if any questions?
Thank you, Clint. Excellent report. For the instructions, I'll now go through the individual names for comments. Mike, do you have any questions or comments for Clint on his report?
No, things look good. I think we're, obviously based on both what we've got from Peter and from Clint, it seems as though at least for the first half, for the first part of the pandemic, we weathered it well. Let's just hope that as we go into the winter, we can continue with that direction.
Thank you, Mike. I'll now go through all the other attendees. David Lane?
No comment, thank you.
Okay. Angelica?
No comment, thanks.
Okay. Jason?
No comment, thank you.
Peter?
No comments.
Stephanie?
No comments.
Okay. Again, excellent report. I just kind of like to remind anybody that's watching on TV that we started the year with a target for this over and under collection account of trying to end up the year at about $500,000. We're going to be well north of that by $1.25 million. But I do want to remind folks that that is an over and under collection account, and we are required the next year to return that over collection to the ratepayers. So while it's been kind of a banner year for that account this year, it will be returned to ratepayers next year. With that comment, we'll close discussion, and do I hear a motion to accept the PPNA report as submitted?
So moved.
This is Bill. I will second that motion. And with no further discussion already checked, we will now move to a roll call vote on the motion to accept the PP&FA report as submitted. Mike?
Yes.
And this is Bill. Yes. The recommendation to accept the report passes as submitted. Passes unanimously. We will now move to the next item on the agenda, and that is a presentation of the cost of service study. Is that you, David?
Yes, I'm going to start it, Bill. And obviously, we have staff here that will dig deeper. When we got together as staff to talk about it, we thought I would give the 10,000-foot overview of it, where we think we came out with the report and where we're going. And then as we have questions from the board, staff can dig into it more deeply. We did pass out a set of slides to the board that looks like this, that were presented by the consultant. And although I'm giving the 10,000-foot overview, staff really did a lot of hours digging out details, getting stuff together. Even during this time when it's simple things like getting stuff from different offices used to be so easy, and it's become a challenge. So kudos to staff for doing that. Today, we also want to present this report to the board for review. We're not looking for any acceptance or any action to be taken on this today. What it is this was starting to prepare us for what calendar year 21, 22, 23 are going to look like, and so that we can have a good discussion about the 21 budget at the next meeting in December, and we can also begin the discussion about should we have any changes to our rates in 21 at December meeting. We don't need to make any decision on that today. So as we look at that set of slides, if we could flip to page 3, you can start with the assumptions that the consultant and staff worked out. Obviously, when we're looking at rate projections, we need to do assumptions. For these assumptions, the annual inflation factor that was put in is 2.2%. The power supply charge, you can see going forward, where that is expected to go up 3.9% in 2020, then down to 1.4, 1.3, but then another blip up out in 2024.
And that's in dollars. Is that correct, David?
It's in percentage.
No, but I mean,
dollars.
it's the power supply charge. So that's the dollars as opposed to the next one, usage, which is in kilowatt hours.
Correct. Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, thank you.
The usage change is the big one. And we've talked about this with the board before, in that we're seeing flat and sometimes negative sales. And what it looks like to do prudent budgeting or projections going forward, we need to carry essentially our same sales that we have, maybe even for the next at least 3 years. Which, as we have inflation and operational charges going up, to have flat sales, that really affects our operational side of the budget. We do have some new growth coming on in town, but most of it's residential growth that comes in. We know we've done the rezoning of Maple Street, Locust Street, High Street, Hobart Street. However, what we've seen over the last 5 years is that as new residential growth comes on, it gets eaten up by efficiencies. We all become more efficient with our light bulbs at home. More people are putting solar on. More people are using batteries at home. And we expect that to continue. And that's a trend that we talked with our consultants about across the country. Everyone's still getting more efficient electricity, which would essentially wipe out that growth and we'll end up with level sales. With our commercial, we do get some commercial that come in. We get big companies coming in. However, we get other companies that change their operations. We haven't seen big increases, and we don't see big increases in sales there. Electric cars, that's the big one. We do think electric cars are coming. Right now, we're not ready to throw an increased number in the next 4 years to see what electric cars are going to do. Some utilities have put those numbers in. However, some of those utilities have gotten burned by the numbers that they put in for electric cars already. It's coming. Hopefully that's something that's going to help us increase our sales. However, we don't think we can go to the bank with it yet. So that's the big one on the usage change. On the capital improvements plan,
David,
So
before
now-
you leave, could I just ask one question? I know you commented we've seen declining or flat sales, but really it's been declining the last 3 years that I've been on the board. And now we're saying it's basically flat. Are we pretty confident that that's a good summation of the picture? What's our confidence level there?
Yes, we're confident that we're going to have sales. We've gone through all those numbers. You know, obviously, when I see them flat, I'm like, we got to go back and check that again. And we've done that, and we're confident in these numbers. And we believe these are conservative numbers.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
Not at all. On the capital improvement plan, this is something that Jason, Mark, Clint, all the other staff have worked on to put our 5-year capital improvement plan. Obviously, we can adjust this somewhat as we go forward. However, we all know by DPU regulations that we need to do capital improvements. We're required to, and we're required to keep our depreciation at least 3%, which is where this is. This is still funding that depreciation at 3%.
And David, just a quick question. That's 3% of what again? I know I asked Peter last month, but it's 3% of our revenues or what?
3% of gross plant value. I get that right, Pete?
Okay. Thank you.
Usually I like to let Pete answer that question, but sorry to jump on you there, Pete. Any other questions on the assumptions? So if we look to the next page, which is actually the projection without a rate change. What that shows is that without a rate adjustment on the operational side of the budget, we're going to be eating into our, essentially eliminate the unreserved cash reserves. We're already going into 21 with our projected expenses, projected revenues, and that's not the real budget. It's an estimated budget for 21. However, it's a good number. Right now, we're looking at going into 21 without a rate increase of being minus 737,000. So coming out of this is that we're looking like we need to do something with the rates in order to cover operational costs due to normal increases in operational and our flat sales. The consultant also studied with staff about the debt coverage ratio, and that's more for what Peter and the accountants want to see, and that's also indicating we need to watch our operational cash. We're going to need to show a bump in that.
Can you explain the debt coverage ratio?
I'll definitely let Peter explain that one, or Clint.
I was kind of expecting
do it,
that.
Pete, or no?
Yeah, it tells people that we're going to borrow money for how many, how many, whether we were able to meet our debt coverage. So can we pay for this debt, the amount of debt we have? And that's what it does. It compares the amount of debt we have to the amount of liquid assets, and liquid assets is cash. So the higher that number is, the better off you are. And if we start to drop down below where we're barely making it by, or we don't have any type of reserves, places like Standard & Poor's, which look at our financials on an annual and every other year basis, that our rating will drop and then our expenses will go higher. So it's our ability to cover our debt.
Thank you, Peter.
And that's good, Peter explained that, because that takes us right to the slide 6, which is the minimum cash recommendation. We also worked with this consultant on that issue, and we know from the efficiency audit, we're working towards a policy on what our minimum cash level should be. What this consultant came back with is a minimum working cash of 120 days. And so we see that right now, even going into 21, we're not at 120 days of cash reserves based on the projections.
Yeah, and you're looking at the bottom line on that slide where we're 91 days. Is that correct, David?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm following along correctly.
Yep, that's exactly right. And you'll see that without an operational side adjustment to the rates, you know, that's dropping over the next 5 years. This minimum cash recommendation is much lower than what the efficiency audit recommended. They were recommending 6 months. And now we're down to this is recommendation of 120 days, which is more what we thought. We thought we were going to end up around 150 days, 120 days. That's what we kind of envisioned the policy going. At this time, in going into December, we're not going to recommend setting a policy on the minimum cash recommendation. However, once we talk about the rates in the budget in December, starting in January, February, that's when we're going to need to put on the agenda for the board to really start talking about a policy for minimum cash reserves and a plan on how we're going to get there. We just think it's going to be too much to swallow for the December meeting. We need to get above. Right now, we're decreasing them. Coming into December, we're envisioning our recommendation to the board going to be like, we at least need to maintain our cash reserves close to where they are right now. And then we need to work towards, okay, how are we going to not let them decrease in the future?
Okay, David, just a question at that point. I want to go back to the assumptions. On the operating expenses, you didn't mention any changes. I'm assuming that we're basically considering the operation as it looks today. We would not be either adding employees or decreasing employees. We would not be making any significant change to our operational budget, if we will. And with the inflation coming in, that's where we're seeing, if we hold the rates constant and our expenses are going up with the current organization and operational level in place, that's why we see cash going down. Is that a correct assumption?
That's exactly correct.
Okay. That leaves us, obviously, basically just one option to increase rates. We haven't had our pal Mark Zubrick on for a while, but I'm sure he would be questioning, and we should probably, at least as a board, ask the question, should we take another look at, do we have the right level of operation in place for declining or now projected flat sales? And I know I've asked that before, and I know you've answered it before, but looking at this picture, it probably at least should be asked again.
Sure, that's why we'll be presenting the 21 budget at the same time in December that we'll talk about any potential rate increases, because the board will see that we've gone through the 21 budget and tried to minimize it as much as possible. You know, it's going to be a lean budget going forward just to maintain services as is.
Okay, thank you. Mike, at this point, do you have any questions for David?
No, I think that was really you're absolutely right in terms of that. As this pushes through, and obviously there's a lot more detail to go into with it, it looks like we're going to be left with, in essence, one of two choices, which would be to raise revenues, and the only way that we can raise revenues under these circumstances is to raise the rates or to make cuts in terms of the services, which because it doesn't appear as though we're talking about any less operational types of activities, then it's pretty hard to say how we would make those cuts. And obviously, as we said, we've got contractual relationships and we've got increases in costs otherwise through inflation, both personnel based and otherwise. So I think that we're left with a difficult choice. But to maintain the operation for the benefit of the town, as we have, traditionally, we're probably going to be left with no choice but to make some type of a rate change on an upward position.
Okay, thank you, Mike. David, I'm sorry for that interruption, but you kind of got to a bottom line right there, even though I know there's more to come. I've been through the presentation that you gave us. It just seemed like a good point to ask that question. So I'll shut up now and let you continue.
Yeah, the bad news it comes right out in front of us on slide 8, which is entitled Sample Rate Tracks, which here's what the consultant put together for what they recommend us to keep as projected cash balances and how much income we need to raise to get there. And then they backed it into what they believe would be the recommended adjustments to our operational side of the rate in order to get that. On slide 8, they got to the essentially close to the same place, doing it two different ways. One is a more substantial increase in 21, a 4.9%, and then flat 2% for the next 4 years. Or if we wanted to just equalize the increase, we could do a flat 2.75 for the next 5 years. So regardless of what we do in December when we go to look at rates, I think this is one slide, this slide 8, that we're going to have to go back to and show the Mr. Zubricks and other people that are questioning what we're doing. Here's what is being recommended to be able to run this as a good business. So slide 8 is the bad news slide. That's what I call it. But
Yeah, I can see that will be a difficult decision for you guys and us on the board.
so slide 9 goes into all of our various rates, which we can talk at length about all of them. We have rates for the residentials, the farmers, the municipals, the small commercial, the medium commercial, the large commercial, all of them. However, in order to have a good conversation, what we'd like to talk about, we've talked about in the past, is to talk about our sample residential rate, which is on page 11.
David, before you leave slide 9, could I just ask you to explain, for example, cost of service versus rate revenue versus percent change? And I think then doing it for just the residential rate would be fine, but then does that lead to a discussion about are some ratepayers subsidizing other ratepayers, and is that the right thing to do? Which again could be a difficult conversation. But could you just go over that briefly?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna let Peter talk about it more, but it's we're not sure. In order to be equitable on the rates on industry standards, this is what the consultant recommends. In order to cover those costs of us providing that individual service. The cost of the R1 costs us $15,614. So in order to equal that, you see the rate percentage change that we need to get there.
Okay, that's how that's calculated.
Upside down on which came out of this study is the municipal street light. We're not receiving the money back from the town equal to what the street lights are costing us. That's
Okay.
no surprise to us. However, it's glaring how much more streetlights cost really than what the town's paying. So then we're gonna have to think that through and do we really want to equalize that all in one chunk, or what's going to happen there? So we need to have discussions on that one.
I can't help but think back to the recent pilot payment increase.
Yeah. So the pilot went up, and now we're gonna increase the cost of streetlights. So we're going to see a continuing balance between the payments from Danvers Electric to the cost back to the town, and we've already obviously we went through the town manager on this, and as soon as he hears that streetlights are more expensive, he's concerned that other things that the town provides us are likely to be more expensive too. So there's going to be a balance going forward, equalizing those costs.
Yeah, that's. I'm sure that will lead to some interesting discussions with the town manager. Okay. It wasn't clear to me what that. It wasn't clear to me what that percent change was, but that's the change we would have to make to the rate to get the projected revenue for that rate to equal the cost of service. Is that correct? Did I hear that correctly?
Yep.
Okay, because when I looked at the slide to prepare for the meeting, I couldn't quite figure out, for example, with, again, that residential rate R1, how that calculation was made. But you've explained it well. Thank you.
So the next slide, we wanted to jump to slide 11, Bill, the sample residential rate.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, the other thing that came out of the consultant's recommendation we weren't surprised at is across the industry, good business practices are showing we recommended to implement a monthly customer charge. And this slide 11 shows on the R1 rate, if we put in various customer charges and did modest adjustments to the embedded operation and maintenance charge, where we would come out as far as our total revenue. And what they did, and this is after we discussed it with them a little bit, is show the slide with a whole bunch of options to get us to a 4% increase. Remember we had the 4.9 was before. We're like, well, let's tone that down a little bit. How does it look if we get a 4% increase?
And that would be just for residential.
This is residential. And then after this is the one to really focus on, and then we would equitably distribute this among the other rates.
Okay. And again, if you would, please explain embedded versus energy charge.
Sure. On your electric bill, you'll see embedded of it. It's just over 9 cents. That embedded piece is a standard in your bill. It has two pieces: a piece that goes to power supply and a piece that goes to operation and maintenance. And then on your bill, you'll see PPFA, which is the additional 100% energy charge that gets adjusted by the board and staff throughout the year in order to get us to come out equal. The embedded piece just stays the same all the time.
Okay, and embedded power supply is what we purchase and pay for, including transmission, I assume?
It's the same thing as what we purchase through PPFA. However, there's just one piece of it that's embedded. It doesn't change.
Okay.
Going
Energy
forward, I don't want to confuse things. Going forward, the PPFA adjustment is intended to be a small fraction of the power costs. The recommendation is to put the majority of our power supply right in the embedded and have the PPFA only be like, say, a penny, either up or down each month to just get it as an equalizer. Over the years, we've gotten it up to over 5 cents. So it's bigger than what's been recommended, and we'll talk about that in the future. We've talked about it with the board in the past, that should the PPFA adjustment just be a small index, we would call it, that goes up and down each month, and like a penny or so, or are we okay with it being a nickel or just over a nickel like it is? So it's perfectly fine to do it the way we did it. It's a little bit different than industry standard. If you go to Peabody Municipal Electric Light has a very small PPFA adjustment, and it actually goes up and a positive and negative depending on how their power supply is for that year.
Okay, again, I've been on the board almost 3 years now, and it hasn't changed significantly. We did make one change where we removed some money from embedded power supply to increase embedded operations and management costs. So I would assume based on that if we were to go way back in time to when the embedded number was a more significant portion, what's happened is over the years, inflation through contracts and other costs have increased the embedded O&M costs and thus shrunk the portion that went to energy, and thus the PP&FA has gotten larger. Would that be a correct assumption?
Absolutely correct, Bill. Very well said.
Okay. So if we were to want to go to the industry practice of having a small PPFA that varied monthly, let's say, or more or less frequently, we would have to increase those embedded charges to decrease the PPFA since our cost basis would remain the same. Is
Correct.
that
Your
correct?
embedded would be more like 14 cents instead of 9 like it is. Correct.
Okay.
Numbers.
I guess my question would be, short of wanting our bill to look like other people in the industry, what would be the driver to do that?
That's the only driver that we see. We've been through with our accountants and with DPU, and they're okay with how we do it right now. Is that correct, Peter?
Yeah. Yep. We're also, it just makes it so that the customers, the one concern about why when we have it the way we have it now is customers sometimes look at the bill in detail and then they will say, I'm being charged for the electricity twice. So if you had it all rolled up into one thing, it would eliminate that and give the customer a better feeling that that's really what they're paying. It would show it as one number instead of it's this piece and that piece.
That would almost say put all of the embedded power supply and energy in the PP and FA and just have the embedded charge be O&M.
So
which
that's
would
the
make
way
it
I
even
thought we
bigger.
would go, Bill. And we've actually proposed it in the past, and industry is that's going against the norm. So we could do that too, but that's now I'm being told that's going against the norm to do it that way.
Okay, so that might invite controversy, huh?
But nah, we got to think about it. That's all.
Okay. All right, thank you. That clears it up a great deal for me. Thank you.
So obviously we've known it's coming. The industry says we really need to get a monthly charge established, and the accountants love it because even if all of our customers go to solar, we still have a monthly charge to cover some of our expenses, and the accounting world is good business to do it. The question is, how much do we do for a monthly charge? Do we start with a modest amount? Do we hit the middle? We're almost like, the consultant did recommendations anywhere between $5 and $20 a month, which is pulled from what they see out there across the country. So they came back and, well, maybe you guys ought to probably start with a $10 a month minimum charge. People know that's coming off your bill, and that actually reduces your energy charge, because your monthly charge is going to generate more income than what we need to get. But we gave 4 options. So we definitely want the board to think about a monthly charge. We'll come with a recommendation at the December meeting, knowing that the consultants recommended between 5 and 20, with a $10 monthly fee being the median.
Okay, just to be clear, the difference between minimum bill and customer charge is right now we use a minimum bill And customers, if they use more than $5, that essentially goes away, and they just pay for the electricity they use with our embedded energy and O&M, and then the PP&FA. This would be, the monthly customer charge would be in addition to what they pay below for the embedded costs and the PPFA. Is that? I just want to make that clear for anybody that might be watching on TV.
Yep. And the other thing to make clear, Bill, is that if you take the median, the $10 monthly charge, in order to get a 4% increase, the embedded operational fee would drop from 0.069 cents per kilowatt hour to 0.065. So we're dropping that kilowatt fee because if we were to put a customer charge in.
That would be the embedded portion of the embedded O&M portion of the embedded charges. Would conversely, that total embedded cost remain the same at about 14 cents, and thus the energy portion go up, which would shrink the PPFA? How would we implement that?
We would, well, under their proposal, under their chart, they've eliminated or just equaled out, zeroed out the adjustable part of the PPNFA and have embedded the whole rate. So essentially,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So essentially the rate's dropping from, say, 15 cents where it is to like 14 cents in total. So in our current rate, you got to add the three numbers together: the 0.02, the 0.069, 0.056. Add those all together to get your kilowatt rate. Under the other ones, you just add the two numbers together.
The two numbers plus the customer charge.
Correct. And the customer charge is just a fee. It's not it's not based on kilowatt hours.
Right. It's a separate charge that everybody would pay.
Right.
Okay. I think that's clearer now for anybody who's watching. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Peter here, if I may jump in, we're talking about the customer charge. At the present time, our commercial customers have monthly charges. Our large general service customers pay $210 every single solitary month before they buy any electricity. Our medium general services pay $10 a month, and our small general services pay $5 a month. And those charges have been in effect for approximately at least 25 years. So the commercial customers have been paying that all along. The residential haven't. So it's not as if we're singling out the residential customer at this point in time. The commercials have been and will continue to pay a flat fee every month.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's a good clarification, Peter. Thank you for offering that. Okay, I'm satisfied with that. David, you want to move on, or is there any more discussion that anybody has on this?
Essentially, that's where we are. The good news of it is that Clint talked earlier about the end of year balance in the PPFA, which is good. We need to give that back next year. Looking forward, preview of the budget next month. Our power costs don't look like they're going up next year. They could even go down. However, our transmission costs are going up. We do need to budget for that. However, because of that give back of the overcollect this year, we're really working hard to see if we have to do an increase on the operational costs. Can we make up a chunk of that through dropping the PPNFA in January and going forward for next year? So even though our hope is, and we'll be able to show next month, we need an increase approximately 4% on the O&M side, we'll be able to see a drop on the purchase power so that the net increase to customers is far lower than 4%. I would hope to be able to wipe out the whole 4%. Probably can't do that, but at least we can wipe out maybe a good chunk of it.
Wow, that is a good news story in the midst of all of this.
No one else is jumping on that bandwagon yet, so that's just a preview. We can't go to the bank with that one yet. Yeah. Peter's like scowling at me, I think. But
Did you want to cover anything on these last couple of slides in the pitch?
Yeah, the last it just really just dives in more detail how it affects the customers and kind of regurgitates what we said. That was what we wanted to present to the board on the 10,000 foot view.
Okay, and what is the all energy, those numbers in the first column? Is that kilowatt hours for the month?
You still on the same slide, Bill?
I'm on slide 13. See that first column? It's got 400, 500, 600, so on.
Yeah, so that's our different customers. We use that's KWH going down the left hand side, so that's a very
Okay. Okay, so that's their usage.
correct.
And then with the rates in place, that's what they would pay based on how much they use.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. All righty. I'll, again, per the procedure of the governor's process of how to run the meeting, I'll go through each person by name and ask if they have any questions or comments on this report of the cost of service study or electric rate preliminary study results. David presented. Angelica, do you have any questions or comments for David?
None at this time, thank you.
Okay, Clint?
None from me, Bill, thanks.
Okay, Peter?
It's back to the customer charge on our water and sewer utilities. Last July, I believe it was, we had to institute a similar thing. I believe residential customer pays $17 per month, which is $17 per quarter, excuse me, which comes out to $566 per month. So on our other utilities, we've had to go to the same methodology in order to ensure that we would have enough revenue on a regular basis to meet our expenses.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Jason?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, Mike, any further questions or comments for David?
No, I think, this is one of those things that obviously we need all three members to really, really dig down into. And I would hope that we, next month, as we go a little further into this, we'll have all three members there. But it's obviously not ideal, but it's not something that should come as any sort of surprise to anyone in regards to this. So we'll play it out. But I would say that just philosophically, I would be more supportive of increases that were evened out over 5 years than to hit a larger one, even with David's sort of optimistic view of the 4% being covered by other items. I think I probably would be more in line with the idea of spreading this out over 5 years. I think the other thing too is that although we talked a little bit about it in regards to the pilot payment, and we probably need to prepare ourselves if we raise rates at the same time that we're raising the pilot payments for questions that come back with that. Now, I think as I've made it clear in my tenure on the board, I have no problem with that, and I think that that they are connected to some extent, but also disconnected in others. But I do think that is a question that we will absolutely receive going forward as we raise if we raise rates and raise the pilot payments at the same time. So.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Stephanie, any questions or comments for David?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. David, I just want to thank you. When I got these materials that Stephanie dropped off and I went through this one, I had a very difficult time understanding it. I didn't think it was particularly well labeled so that it was understandable without explanation. And I thought you really did a nice job of explaining everything. I had a ton of questions for that reason, and you certainly cleared it up for me and hopefully for folks watching on TV. So I think it was a very nice job of presentation, and I thank you for that. Commend you for that.
Thank you.
you mentioned at the start of this that this does not require at this time any recommendation or vote from the board. So we will close that portion of the meeting and move on to the next agenda item, which is the engineering report. And that, I assume, is Jason. And perhaps between David and Jason, you can explain, the recent personnel change and why Jason is with us. And
So I guess we kind of thought it was coming to fruition at the last meeting, but our longtime 10-year director of engineering operations, Mark Piccarini, has accepted a job down at Belmont Electric Light, running their engineering and operations department. It was a move. They actually recruited Mark, and it was a good opportunity for him. So we wish him well. I enjoyed working with Mark. He was really good to work with as I went through a lot of changes here in Danvers, and we know he put his heart and soul into working on the system and getting things as modern and well run as possible. And he was there through a bunch of storms with us, and so we've sent Mark off with good wishes and thanked for everything he's done. We do still have a very competent engineering staff. The one with the most engineering operations experience is probably Jason Small. So we asked Jason to present the capital update to the board today.
okay, do I understand that to mean that this is an interim appointment and that the job will be posted to be filled?
Yeah, we're working with the town manager and the assistant town manager on getting the job posted to be filled. Right. We need to get it filled as soon as possible.
Okay.
This one makes the machine tick. So.
Okay. All right. Well, Jason, congratulations on the interim appointment. And we'll look forward to having you with us until such time as either you or somebody else becomes the permanent.
Thank you. So I'll just give an update on some capital projects that have been ongoing over the last month. The first project is the Danvers Sports Substation. I think previously it was mentioned that the duct bank had partially collapsed and that has been replaced. So for the last month, our crews, along with a contractor, have been pulling in all the underground cables to replace all the getaways for the 4 circuits. At this time, all the cable has been installed on 4 circuits, and we actually pulled a spare one section from a spare breaker to the first manhole in preparation of some upcoming projects. Right now, that cable is being spliced and terminated at the manholes and at the riser poles, and we expect this project to be done by about mid-December. Northland Substation, they're still working on the restoration agreement. My hope and the department's hopes is that from the start of the new year, we'll really start to ramp up and start pushing that project forward in 2021. Ferncroft Substation, where we had the primary metering fail to the tie to Middleton, and then also looking at it was a good spot for some future projects if we could get rid of some structures. So most of that work is complete. Middleton's work on their end is complete. Right now, all we have left is an outage, which we are scheduling in the next couple of weeks. And once that outage takes place, everything will be cut over, and we expect this project to be complete sometime in December as well.
Jason, just a quick question. Could you explain why we're working with Middleton on that? What causes that partnership or division of responsibilities, just so, again, it's a little clearer.
Okay. Yes, at that Ferncroft Substation, there was a tie point with the town of Middleton. So if they were to have some issues and they needed backup from us, we could supply them with power, and vice versa. If we had issues and we needed backup, they could supply us with power. And in order to measure how much is being delivered one direction or the other, there's some primary metering equipment, and that failed previously. So, and it's on an old wooden structure with some old switches. So what we've done is working with Middleton, because their lines run through there as well on the same structures. We installed some poles in front of the substation, was able to relocate all the equipment outside of the fence on the pole line, clean things up a little bit, and that should hopefully be complete around mid-December, and then we'll have to take the old structure down. And then that leaves us a nice open space inside of fence to potentially do some future projects.
Very good, thank you. That makes it much clearer for me, and I'm sure for anybody watching on TV, so thank you, that was good.
I know previously, our standards book, the revitalization of that, creating some new standards, as mentioned before, all that work is complete. We're just working on the application process. So I've been working on, also with the rest of the group, creating a presentation to present to the staff on, when to use the standards, how to use them, when they're going to get updated, how to, if we're going to build something that's not the standard, how do we go about that? Process, and that's being put together now, and hopefully at the start of the new year we'll be able to get together with everybody in staff and roll these standards out and start using them. Just in the meantime, when we have projects, the engineers and along with Line Ops has been looking at what we've done and using them where we can. So we are kind of using them, but not formally using them, but that hopefully will be in sometime in January. We had a couple of emergency pole replacements come up throughout the fall that we were able to work on. We had a couple of poles that were cracked. They weren't failed. There was just like a crack that you could see from the ground. It wasn't imminent danger, but they definitely need to be replaced pretty quickly. One of them was pole 4-102 at Old Maple and Route 1. That is a pretty complex pole. There was a 23 kV circuit and then two 4 kV junctions. And in order to get that pole transferred over safely and completed, it took a lot of coordination and scheduling between the various departments there, and we were able to get that done. So that pole is complete. And then we had another pole at pole 13 Preston Street, very similar, not quite as complex, but still complex due to the fact that Middleton has their 23 kV line at the top of the pole. We had a 23 kV line and we had a 4 kV circuit. That project ended up being a little bit bigger due to the fact that we had to increase that pole height, and when we did that, that required other poles to be replaced because they keep the height distance within roughly 5 feet, transition 5 feet down each pole. And then there was also to maintain all of our safety clearances between different and the 4 kV and secondary and such. It actually ended up we had to replace 7 poles. So those poles have been replaced, but the transfers remain, and we're currently trying to coordinate with Middleton as their lines on those poles as well, all 7 of them, and we'll have to work together with them, and hopefully we'll be doing that over the next few weeks. And just a final update on our outage management system. I think last month it was presented that we received training on it, which we have. Right now, we're currently trying to, are working with IT and our SCADA vendor and our OMS vendor to get SCADA integrated into the OMS. So what that means is to those substations and devices that we have supervisory control, if they open for whatever reason as part of the protection scheme, that will communicate to the OMS and automatically open it in OMS and help that prediction engine work a little bit quicker. And helps the anybody who's operating in it see what's going on and maybe make the jobs a little bit easier when we confirm the outage. So once that's complete, we'll be able to push out the outage map to the customer-facing outage map out to the public. So in the meantime, when we have raw outages, we have been going in and confirming that the prediction engine on the outage management system works and that the customer-facing outage map is showing the right information. So we're kind of in like a pre-production mode with that, and so far everything's been going well. So we expect to be able to have that fully up and running and the customer-facing map out in the first quarter of 21. And that is pretty much what I have to present now. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Mike, we'll start with you. Do you have any questions or comments for Jason?
No, that's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll go through the rest of the attendees. David, any questions or comments for Jason?
All set. The only thing I just wanted to say is one of the biggest news out of that is the progress on the outage management system. Really got to give staff credit on this one. It's a very difficult thing to do, and we're pushing forward. I mean, compared to National Grid and those guys, we just have a tiny, tiny staff, and we're going to have a system that's going to be close to what they have. And work with IT. IT finally got on board with us, thanks to these guys working with IT and getting IT encouraged about it. You know, as obviously, in the town we have a whole separate IT department, and it's going to be a great benefit. And even though it's the engineers and our focus is always on getting the power back on, getting word out to our customers is just important too. And this new system, we're very excited about it, and a lot of hard hours have been going in, and it's going to pay off here after the first of the year.
Mr. Chair, if I could, and I apologize for this, I don't know if you just saw the worried look on my face, but my secretary just came into my office and said that I have something that I have to do right now. There's no such thing as a legal emergency. I try to explain this to people, but apparently there's somebody in our front that believes it. Is there anything else that we need to, if we can do it right away, that needs a vote on the
I'm not aware of anything on the agenda. We just have David's, but
Yeah.
that technically doesn't require a vote. And then questions from you and comments from you and me.
Right.
Are you
I will-
anticipating you're gone, or would a 5
So
or
what
10
I'm-
minute break do?
No. I think based on the look on her face, well, put it this way. I'm not going to be gone. I'm going to turn the video off of my machine right now. I will still be here. You might not be able to hear me though, if you ask for me. But that way you can continue on with the meeting, and I have no questions whatsoever.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that okay with you, David?
Yeah, we won't take. Yeah, so you'll be listening in on the meeting, and we won't take any votes or take any action. Got it.
Right, as long as there's no more vote, because I just wanted to make sure if there's no votes that we need, that's fine. But I'll still be, you might not see my pretty face, but I will still be listening.
Okay. The only vote we have to take is to adjourn, but I think we can assume you would support that.
I'll make a presumptory motion right now to adjourn at the point that David is done.
Okay, I'll second it, and we'll
Perfect.
execute the action at the appropriate time. Thank you, Mike.
Right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Okay. Where we were commenting questions on Jason's report. I think, Clint, did I ask you?
I'm still here, but don't ask.
Yeah, no questions from me.
Okay, Peter, any questions for Jason?
No questions.
Okay, Stephanie?
All set, thank you.
Okay. Jason, I had made some notes prior to the meeting. The outage management system being the big one, just a question of how is the progress on that? And I think you probably addressed that pretty well. You're starting to use it. Is it safe to say, starting to get comfortable with it?
Yes, we've been using it when we've had some minor outages. We're in it every day, just checking on stuff, and we're learning a little bit more as we go along, and reinforcing the training, and once the integration with SCADA is complete and we can prove that out, I think we'll definitely be ready to move forward and start using it full time and have it the outage map out to the customers.
Okay, great. And I would, like to thank David for his comment. It sounds like it's going to be a great tool for us. And certainly, as a communication tool with customers, who will be able to go on and see where outages are occurring and all. I think it's great, and I fully support and commend you guys for doing that. See if I had anything else that would apply to you. I guess just as a comment, we had said we were going to do capital projects at some point, but today's meeting obviously has been pretty full, and December sounds like it's going to be very full. So going through the total list of capital projects, we might want to just defer until next year, David.
Well, is what we said at the last meeting. We are going to have the draft budget to the board at the December meeting, and we will have a draft capital plan. So we'll have a capital update to the board with that capital plan. You'll see what we've spent on the projects this year and what we plan to spend next year. So that'll be a good overview to kick that up. It won't be quite the same as the dashboard, but it'll lead us right to the update of the dashboard probably in January.
Okay, all right, thank you. So we will in fact do capital projects next month then.
Yep.
Okay, I had nothing else for you, Jason. Thank you. Good report,
Thank
very understandable, I think well presented. And I think, nicely presented for folks on TV, listening or watching on TV. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, where's my agenda? Okay, I think, David, you're up next, right?
Thank you, Bill. Yes, at the top of the list is our recruitments. We're pushing forward. Our most important recruitment is obviously the Director of Engineering Operations that we talked about before. In addition to that, we have a recruitment going on for a head line worker. That's because Brian Cole was promoted. We expect someone from in-house to be promoted for that, into that, and Clinton staff are going looking at a number of candidates. Because we expect someone from in-house to move up to head line worker, we actually have a recruitment out there for a first-class line worker, theoretically, to come in and replace the person who's promoted. The other position that we have a recruitment going on for is the technical service asset manager. That was Ron Pellegrini left us to go start his own business. So Ron did good for us, but we lost him, so we're also recruiting for that. We're doing all these recruitments under the umbrella of the town manager's hiring freeze across the town. He's very concerned with COVID and drop in revenues, about replacing jobs. We're pushing hard at the importance of each of these positions, that they're must fills, and hopefully we'll be able to fill all of these jobs in order to keep things going with minimal staffing levels that we think we have. That's it for person. I did want to mention Angelica. We haven't really mentioned her this much at this meeting, but Peter is ramping her up to full speed in the business division. We've had her at some high-level meetings with the town manager, finance director, obviously with this the study that we presented today. So very pleased at Angelica's role in getting to know staff, getting up to speed with the operations, and she's going to become a key piece of this operation already and getting larger every day. So very pleased with that. And even though she's quiet today, behind the scenes here, she's playing a big role already. Probably similar to Mr. Small over on the engineering operations side, but very pleased there. In the packets, we included the draft. It's called the Electric Division and Municipal Light Board. It's the report for the annual report. The main author of this, even though my name's at the top, I think we had to change that, was Mr. Clint Allen and other staff were the main authors of this. And I think they did a very great, a really good job on it. It's thought out, it's entertaining to read, and you can just tell it's put together with a lot of knowledge and passion. And wanted to commend those guys on it. It's in the past, we didn't get the enthusiasm for it. It became like the Dave Land report. Now it's a staff report, and with Clint as the main editor there, and got to commend him on that. Really, really good job.
Could I comment on that while you're on it?
Absolutely.
Okay. I thought it was, I'll echo your words, interesting and entertaining. I particularly enjoyed mixing in the bits of history that were there. I thought that was quite educational. And I really do think I've read those for 3 years now, and I think this one is the most interesting. I did have one little criticism, which is kind of one of my things. As I'm sure you've all heard me say, where I worked, we had a big problem with TLAs, which are 3-letter acronyms. And I did a stint where I was reviewing and editing a lot of technical reports for a couple of years. And one of the things we all do in any industry is we become very comfortable with our acronyms. And on these pages aren't numbered, but on the pages with the pictures of the construction scene, which I'm assuming is the Northland Station, or at Liberty Tree Mall there, at the bottom of that page, we're talking about the outage management system, and OMS follows the convention of the first time you use it, you write out the words, and then you put in parentheses the acronym OMS. But then we follow in the very next line, SCADA and AMA, and those are not explained. And they might be, I would just suggest you write those out and then, put in the acronym if you're going to use it again. If you don't use it again, you don't need to put the acronym in parentheses. And then on the next page, there's, in the second paragraph, Nest Smart Thermostats. Nest looks like an acronym. I don't even know what it means. Is that a company name? But again, just those minor clarifications, I think would make it ever so slightly more readable. But I too think it's an excellent job. It's interesting, it's entertaining, it's educational, and it's certainly in my 3 years, this is the best one I've seen. So I commend David and congratulate you guys on a nice job done on probably a thankless task, but well done.
Hey, thanks, Bill. I just wanted to shout out that Stephanie was the one that recommended the historical fun facts and kind of reformatted everything and got it into the new format. So thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, that's excellent job, Steph. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Obviously try to keep it, and the other thing, obviously, we're kind of full speed on the whole budget review, and actually bringing in a number of new players. We have Angelica new to the budget this year. Jason's new. Some pieces Clint is new to. So we're full speed on the budget, and that's in addition to the capital projects going on. The biggest push right now. Everything else is is status quo. The COVID issues are status quo at this time. We're still working on some hours or a system where we could allow the public to be open to the public in the business office. We're not there yet due to some other factors, but we're working there. However, staff across the board is going above and beyond with customer service. And if anyone hears of a lacking customer service, let me know, and we'll find a way. We're doing, from myself on down, whatever the customers need, we're finding out a way to do it. And that's been our MO, and everyone's jumped right on that bandwagon from the get-go. And we are we have it, no progress yet, but Stephanie keeps reminding us we need to work on employee appreciation, and we're working on something there. We've taken that notice direction from the board, and we're working on something. That's all I had, Bill.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Dave. All right, let me go through my list. I'm really trying to imitate Stan here, even though it's coming up on a year since he unfortunately passed away unexpectedly. But one of the things that impressed me with Stan was his preparation for the meeting and always having about a full page of questions for you and the team. I miss Stan. I thought he did an excellent job as chairman. And trying to walk in those shoes. So let me go through my list of questions. David, I have two subjects that are not electric division. Could we do those after the meeting, or do you want me to take a minute now and do them?
Yeah, we should do those after the meeting. Yep.
Okay, that's fine. First one I had was employee appreciation, and I was glad to hear you mention it. I know last month when I raised the question, you commented that we did have some service awards coming up, but I do think, while those are certainly appropriate, 5, 10 years, et cetera, we really need to be looking above and beyond that, particularly this year, as you mentioned, with, everybody working under the COVID burden, and then, everybody pretty much going above and beyond in order to take care of customers. So I really do think we need to do something in the service awards that's above and beyond our normal thing. And we've had that very nice breakfast, which I've attended since I've been on the board, and I think was enjoyable for me as a board member, and employees seem to enjoy it as well. So where that's not possible this year, I do think we need to do something. I did want to bring up something that we've consciously put on hold, which is the financial management software. And I understand the decision that with everything that the team is dealing with there, the need to back burner stuff. And it makes perfect sense to me that capital projects were put on hold. And it really makes perfect sense to me that the financial software investigation and purchase was also put on hold. I wish the other two board members were here to hear the comment. I'll probably make it again next month because they're not. But financial reporting is, I think, probably my biggest concern with the agency, with the electric division, because as you know, Peter has so eloquently explained, we really are working with outdated tools here. And it's been one of my concerns that you guys put a tremendous amount of work into making a budget every year. And then at the board level, we don't use that as a tool for reviewing how things are going with you. We compare to last year, and all discussions about changes from a baseline are the baseline of last year, not the budget. And of course, last year is a backward-looking baseline. The budget is a forward-looking baseline that includes our best estimates of what's going to happen with the world as we're dealing with it today, and putting our best thinking into it. What should the operation look like? What should the finances look like? And a modern financial system would do that for us. And you know, having talked when I first came on board, I worked in project management, and talking with Mark when I was learning was Mark as an individual had to do a lot of his project management financial stuff manually, because the current outdated tool we use doesn't provide that project management and project finance input for him. So while I fully understand that it has been put on hold, backburnered, I do think, you know, at some point, you know, as soon as is reasonable for the load on the team, that should be reactivated. And that's my comment on that subject. Just please get it into your thinking moving forward. And I will defer to when you think it's appropriate to do that.
So behind the scenes, steps have been taken, both on the inventory side, the software side, and
You went silent, David. The software went silent. Would you start over, David?
Sure. Can you hear me now, Bill?
Yes, now I can hear you. Just came back.
Uh-oh.
I hear you.
Behind
Now I do.
operations for those new systems. Can you guys hear me? Peter, can you hear me? No.
In and
Off and
out.
on, Dave. Yeah, off and on, Dave.
It has like a headset. Uh-oh. All right. I'll try to talk slow. No.
Heard that. Okay. The next
You
one.
heard that? Okay.
I heard that. Yeah. Next meeting. Next one. I know you told us the last meeting that the DPU investigation, we haven't heard much, and the town manager expects to issue a letter report when that's completed. So just any update to that? You can do hand signals. No. Okay. No update. That's fine. I had written down the customer charge. That has been clarified to my satisfaction. We use the term demand charge with the large commercial, and I think medium commercial. What's the difference between a demand charge and the customer charge? That's probably a Peter question, right?
Yeah, the meters, if you think of it like an odometer in your, or a speedometer in your car, if you were to get in your car and leave your driveway in haste and get up to 35 miles an hour, say, in your neighborhood as you're leaving your driveway, and then you drive around your neighborhood at 15, when we measure demand, it would stay at the 35. And the assumption is that if a customer uses that much electricity at one point in time, we have to provide enough electricity to meet that demand at 35 for the entire month. So that's what that charge is. It's us having enough in power contracts to provide enough electricity or kilowatt hours to our large commercial customers based on their most use in a particular billing period. And for us, a billing period is a month.
Okay, so it's kind of akin to what we would pay the utility as a capacity charge. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Different term, same stuff. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. The next question is, I know we changed this year for the summer peak season from what we had been doing for a peak reduction program. I know we discussed it. I don't remember if we hired the peak generator this year. I think we didn't. But we also changed how we do the customers, enlisting people to participate in the peak program. I think it's now with the smart meters, and I just wanted to ask how that new program was effective as compared to the old program, if that's available.
So at the end of the year, we'll have a demand response summary for you guys with the costs and what we got, Bill.
Okay.
And that will come. The staff is working on that as they develop the budget and proposal for next year's program.
Okay. Next one is the virtual.
It's coming.
You mentioned we've gone to a virtual energy audit as opposed to the home energy audits we've had in the past, where somebody would come to the house and survey the house, and they'd give you a couple light bulbs and stuff like that, and they would make a series of recommendations that would help you to reduce electrical usage. How is the virtual energy audit going? Are we getting good feedback on it? Does it seem to be effective? Is it being used at anywhere near the levels of people coming to the house to do those kind of audits?
But
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so we have been doing the remote energy audit since back in, I believe, April. We began that. We haven't seen the number of participants that we would typically in a year with the standard in audit, but however, we have met a pretty high level of success with the initial offerings of the remote energy audits, and then now we have the new Energy X platform, which is, it's a little more in-depth, a little more comprehensive online experience, and then it also offers the customers the ability to, recommendation is to replace all your old light bulbs and get 12 new LEDs. It kind of gives you right at the end of the audit to give you the opportunity to do that. So that's only been up for about a month, but as Dave mentioned, we'll have a full report on all those things next meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Clint. I thought I would go ahead and get one. I had an energy audit at the house a couple of years ago. I thought I'd just go ahead and get one to try one since I'm on the board.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. We'll reach out to, we'll have Jeff Ely reach out to you, and we'll get that scheduled. That'd be great.
I was going to ask, how do I access it? Jeff will contact me, tell me how?
Yep.
That'd be great. Thank you. Okay. I just like to say, Angelica, it was nice having you in the meeting again. I'm glad to hear that you're, getting onboarded well, and we'll look forward to you being a little more vocal in the meetings as time goes on. Again, I'd like to welcome you to Danvers Electric, and glad to have you.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay.
Mr. Hayes.
Okay. This next one is a little difficult for me, and I hope you will understand that. Um, as the MLB, we, in our charter, we are specifically not charged to be involved in personnel issues. However, since I've been on the board, I've seen a number of people leave, and I'd just like to make, they won't be real brief, but they'll be pretty brief comments on that. We've seen a number of people leave, obviously most recently Mark, and that's kind of what's got me thinking. When I came on the board, it was some period of time after a person named Colleen left. Colleen, we had a separate electric division manager. And when she left, my understanding is that was rolled into you, David, which has worked fine as far as I can tell. And certainly appears to be a sound decision for the town in that it reduces an executive position. It's my understanding that she also took the engineering manager at the time with her to her new position. Since then, Chuck Underhill has left us, and Clint has come on, and now Mark has left us, and Jason is acting, at least in the interim. I worked in industry for a long time, and I wanted to express my opinions as a board member, or make some comments as a board member on that situation. And I view it, and I try to keep an open mind on these things, I view it as a two-sided coin. On one side of the coin, I see all the positive things that happen when an organization or a business has turnover in the top leadership ranks. And there are a number of positive things that happen when you see that happening. What you have is new people coming into those positions, bringing new ideas, new experiences, new perspectives, new backgrounds. They ask good questions as they're learning. They come up with new ideas and new suggestions. And that can be a sign of a really healthy organization, that they're able to get into the organization people who bring those new ideas and new experiences. And when more senior people leave or retire, then that provides promotional opportunities, career opportunities for these new, younger, talented people that we have coming into our organization. And I see that with one set of glasses as a very positive thing for Danvers Electric. And I want to make sure that I'm very clear on that, that I see a lot of positive things coming from a number of people leaving over the last few years. Then on the other side of the coin, I put on my darker glasses and I worry. Is there, and I'll use an old term that many of you probably never heard of, a brain drain going on? Are we losing a lot of industry knowledge or Danvers Electric knowledge? And so it just concerns me that, you know, 4 significant positions have turned over in the last, I'm not sure how long ago that Colleen and the engineering manager left, but in some period of time, we've had 4 of our business leaders leave the organization. And I just wonder, is that kind of normal? Is it a concern? This is not a board area of responsibility. I do not expect the team to answer any of those questions. I just wanted to express an opinion and know that I'm putting it into good hands with this team that I can see on the screen in front of me. I know you're very serious, sound business people. You're good people. You're doing a great job managing this business. I just thought I would raise it as a question, and as I say, I don't expect an answer. I don't expect a response. It is not the responsibility of the board to be involved in personnel issues. I just wanted to raise the topic, make sure that you guys are thinking about it, and is this a good thing for the team? Are we handling this in the best way possible? And are we improving the health, professionalism, and management of the organization, which I think is at a very high level? Certainly Clint coming on board in my time has been a very positive addition. I'm sure that was a good move for your career, Clint, and I'm glad to see you on board doing so well, contributing so well. I'm sure Angelica, as you get more experience on board, will also be a very positive addition for the organization. So, as I say, I just wanted to raise it as a concern, and I'll shut up at that point. At that point, we've completed the agenda. We have completed the board members' comments and questions. The next item would be to schedule the next meeting.
Bill, we need to ask Clint if there's been any public
Oh, I'm
comments.
sorry. Thank you. I ask it every time and I forgot. Thank you, David. And I even wrote it on my copy of the agenda. No, missed it.
I figured you had it there.
See what happens? You know, I play handball and now I'm playing pickleball for fun. And I'm usually the guy keeping score, and at my age, I forget frequently. And finally, one of the guys said, you know, we ought to have a rule. Nobody over 60 can keep score. And that's kind of like me and the agenda. So, okay, thank you. Clint, do we have any more public comments?
We received no public comments at this time.
Okay, during the course of the meeting. Thank you, Clint. Okay, now do we move to setting the next meeting, Dave?
Yes, that'd be good.
Okay. What do you propose?
Well, so we look towards the end of December would be good, so that we could have a budget to present to you folks. We're getting around. I don't either the 22nd or the 29th works for me. Staff, do we have conflicts on either 22nd and 29th? Clint, Jason, you guys think of taking the weeks off, or?
Yeah, I was actually planning on being out the 22nd, but I'll be around the 29th.
Okay, Jason?
Either will work for me.
Okay, Pete and Angelica?
Either one of those days, Dave.
So right now, so we could do the 22nd without Clint, Bill, or we could do the 29th.
Okay, I guess I don't know Mike and Eric's schedule.
Why don't I have Stephanie send out an email to everybody, and we'll do it by consensus through email then.
Okay, either would work for me. I kind of think in general the 22nd would be better, just because post-Christmas, people may, want to go skiing or something. But either works for me, and if Mike and Eric are fine with the 29th is fine for me as well.
Yep. New Hampshire just got classified as a dangerous state, Bill, so I don't know what I'm supposed to do about my skis. I'm a little
They're
upset.
all dangerous at this point, Dave. So, okay. So Stephanie will poll everybody as to what their availability is, and then I assume Steph, you'll send out an email as to when the meeting is.
Correct.
Or 29th, and that works fine for me. At this point, I will go back through the list of attendees and ask if there are any final questions or comments. And if none, we will then proceed to deal with the prior motion to adjourn the meeting. And then, Dave, if you would hang on just a second, I have two non-electric division questions for you.
Good. I have one for you too. Good.
Okay. All right. Dave, any final questions or comments?
All set. Thank you.
Okay. Angelica?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Clint?
Nothing further, Bill. Thanks.
Jason?
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay. Peter?
No questions, Bill.
All righty. Stephanie?
All set. Thank you, Bill.
All right. In that case, we move to the motion on the floor to adjourn the meeting. Mike has already voted yes. I will vote yes, and the meeting is now officially adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Another excellent meeting under difficult conditions.